make connections with people. For me, I went to jail, and your dad knows him. His name is Thomas. We grew up like this together, from Wisconsin. And he said, listen, he said, what you're doing is bad for business. He said, because he was part of the Mexican cartel. He's a second-ranking member in Florida. My family, we're Italian, we're from up by Chicago and Wisconsin. We're in the mafia. There's some that still are. When you get into an organization like that, there's only one way out, and that's to die. You're either dead, or that's the only way out. And he said, what you're doing is bad for business. I need you to join. And I said, screw you. I'm just being honest. I said, screw you. I'm not joining. He said, no, it's going to be bad blood in the streets, and it's going to cause attention. The cops are going to come. Because I decided, instead of going and buying my drugs, I was going to make my drugs. And I figured out how to make as good a drug or better than what they had with no cut. And cut is a substance they put in it to make it expand out.
Like
Make it larger, so you make a filler. You make an ounce, 2 ounces. And I had no cut in mine. And so he talked to me, and I agreed to join him. And I said, listen, when I am done making the amount of money I want, I'm out. He said, not a problem. And I believed him. And when he was in charge, it probably would have happened. I made my amount of money I wanted, and I was out. And I was at a girl's house, and I walked up to the store to grab a pack of cigarettes. And me and my wife were separated. Because, see, drugs took 2 marriages from me. It's taken 3 houses. I couldn't tell you how many vehicles. And my kids, which I'm now fighting for. And everything's going good. But I'm walking to the store, and I said, what do you want? They said, get in the car. I said, why? They said, your ex-wife came and got some dope from us on front, and she can't pay it, so now we need you to pay it. Now, if I wouldn't have been up for a week and a half, I would have understood that they were lying. But as soon as I got in the vehicle, they put a pistol in my head. And I was hog-tied. I was tied with zip ties behind my back, and then my hands were tied to my feet. And for the next 4 days, they didn't stop beating me. I was beaten with fists, I was beaten with chairs, I was beaten with brooms. Everybody know a fork that you take and you serve turkey with? Turkey dinner? It's a big fork, bigger fork. When that wasn't enough, because I wouldn't make a sound, they took the fork and they put it on a stove. And they got that fork red hot. And they came to the back of my thighs, and they peeled the skin off the back of my thighs from my rear end all the way down to here, and then they let the skin hang. And they do it on my back, and then they take just the tip of the fork and they drag it down my back and make indentions on my back. And they burn my shoulders. But the other thing I want to show you guys what came from that, if it's alright, is a scar that goes from here all the way down to here. Because a day and a half after I got away, when I was tied up, they took my pocket knife away from me. And I know enough Spanish to know, I can understand Spanish, but I can't speak it that well. And I sat there and I said, I know it's been 4 days since I slept. But how long has it been since they slept? And on the 4th day, I wanted to die. Because see, when you get into that life, there's one way out. Either you go to prison for life, or you're dead. Because you overdose, or you're dead because of a drug deal went bad, whatever. And this happens all the time. I've known a friend of mine, they found her in the ditch by the B&B in Welborn. Because she took Xanax and she overdosed on Xanax, and the people she was with thought that they would get in trouble for her overdosing. They pulled over to the side of the road and they kicked her. Why she was alive still. And kicked her out of the vehicle, left her in the ditch, and she died because she didn't get medical help. Because you're not thinking straight on drugs.
It messes your mind up.
It messes your mind up. You don't think rationally. You don't think naturally. You don't have a care for human life.
But that's almost the appeal for it, is because you feel differently, like how you're thinking.
Yeah.
It changes your mind. That's why people
He's
try
right
drugs
here.
to begin with, because it makes them feel differently.
Because see, they're trying to run from something. There's some of you in here, every one of us, I can speak for myself, that you're trying to run from something in life, a hurt,
You want a chair, Jake?
a pain,
You good?
I'm fine, that you're trying to cover up, whatever it is. And this is all about Jesus, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take an earthly substance, a materialistic substance, and you're trying to fill a spiritual void. And that'll never work. Because an earthly substance, you have to continuously go back for it. You got to get more, and you got to get more and more and more, and it's going to run out.
And your body builds up
And your
tolerance.
body builds up tolerance, and what you're going to do is you're going to lie, you'll cheat, you'll steal from your mom and dad. I've done it many times. To do that, because you're not going to make enough money. Doesn't matter what you do. I was making $36,000 a month
A month.
selling drugs. Is how much I made. And I had it going out just as fast as I had it coming in. Because that's the life. But after a day and a half, or 4 days being tied up, it was a day and a half later.
Can you put it up? Jake's got it in
It was a day and a half later,
What's he talking about?
when I got away, they took my pocket knife away from me, and I was tied up with plastic zip ties. And I realized, was listening to them talk, and they were going to kill me because they were making an example out of me. And at that point, I realized I didn't want to die, because I have 2 daughters that I never get to walk down an aisle, and I have 1 son that I never get to teach how to play football, baseball, whatever. And I started crying, and I said, Lord, I don't want to die. And I said, how long has it been since they slept? And as I broke the circle they were in, one of the guys yawned, and the other 3 followed suit. They all 4 took turns beating me for 4 days. Literally beat me till they were exhausted, and then the next guy would. My left eye was swollen, my ribs were cracked, my whole body was bruised all over. I had skin hanging off the back of my legs. But I felt my pocket knife they took away from me was in my back pocket. Now I want you to understand, it wasn't in my front pocket, it wasn't anywhere, it was in my right back pocket that they took away from me. And the only way that made that back was the Lord put it there. And I felt it there. And all 3 of them sat down on that bed. 1 fell asleep, and the other 3 followed suit. And with whatever strength I could, I mustered up and got over to the bed, and I kicked the bed as hard as I could, and none of them moved. And I took that pocket knife out, and I cut my hands free, and then I cut my feet free. And I ran out of that house, over there by Tractor Supply where the new one is, and I ran all the way down to where the El Llanos on 90 is. And there was a gambling casino, I used to go in there. And I went in there, and there's a friend of mine that was in there, and I used his phone. And I called my mom. It's the first time my mom ever seen me beaten and swollen up. I slept for a day and a half, and then I woke up and I had a horrible pain in my stomach. And I thought it was gas. My dad came home from being out of town, and he looked at me. He said, I'm taking you to the hospital. And I said, no. He said, you can't take me to the hospital. I have a warrant for my arrest. And he said, no, I'm taking you in. When they booked me into the hospital, my blood pressure was 64 over 42, which I should have been dead. Because I lost so much blood. I was bleeding internally the whole time. Because my spleen ruptured. And they tried to fly me to Shands in Gainesville to do the surgery, but they couldn't because it was raining so hard. So they had to take me by ambulance. As I went to the hospital,
Bob, no.
I started to pray,
No.
and there was a black male nurse that came over, and he held my hand and he prayed with me.
Bob, here.
I woke up, however long it had been, but when I woke up, I had bandages all over my thighs, all over my body, over my ribs, and I had staples going from here all the way down. Because they had, not only when they opened me, they were afraid that the trauma was so bad that I had more internal injuries, so they did exploratory surgery. When I was done, and I finally got out of there, I had to recoup. And I did, obviously, from here. But you know, not even that stopped me. And what I was running from was the fact that I had 2 failed marriages, and I had kids that I was no longer being a father to. But what I didn't think about and never took into consideration was what I was putting my mom and dad through the whole time. Now, some of you are old enough. Could you imagine having kids and not knowing if you're going to get a call from the morgue saying they're dead? Because that's what I was heading for. Or they'd been arrested, because they got that call many times. Cops came into my mom and dad's house and searched it many times. And so there's nothing there in that life. There's a saying that we had, and it's called, "There's no love in the game." And there isn't. No one cares about you. They care about what can you do to help them get high. If you can't do nothing to help them get high, they care less. You'll find, as long as you got money, you're going to find you have great friends. Really acquaintances, but you don't. And that's what's happening. But when that finally ended is when I was in jail, of all places. I got sentenced to a year in the county jail because I got pulled over and the cops searched my vehicle. And if they would have found what they were looking for, I could have went to jail for life. I had that much drugs in the car. They lifted that back seat up and it was sitting right there, but they never saw it. 3 times they searched that car. And all I got was a year in the county jail. But when I was in jail, and many of you know, I went to church. Basically my whole life.
They don't know you.
From 5 on.
I do.
I went to church my whole life from 5 years old on, but I never had a relationship with Jesus. I knew about him, but I didn't know him. And see, it's like knowing an actor or a sports athlete. You know about them because you read in the papers or online, but you don't know them. And when I knew Jesus, and I met Jesus in there, because I got baptized for the 5th time, and filled with the Holy Ghost in jail. Because the jail allowed 3 preachers to come in 3 times a week and preach. That's when everything changed. And I know there's hurt, and I know there's a void in lives, and in kids' lives. And I know many of you are experiencing that. But you're not going to find it there. All you're going to find is a bigger void.
How did you start? Like, what was the first thing you did before you
Pain
got, like...
I smoked weed, pain pills, and then that just led into something because you're constantly chasing the next high. You're
Because
constantly
it feels
chasing the
good
next.
at the start.
Feels good at the start. It does. But then it's just like, what am I doing? You have no control over your body. You know how many young women I know of that because of being on drugs, they run away from home? And I'm just going to speak bluntly right now, they've been raped by multiple men at one time because they were unconscious and didn't know that was going on. Had no clue, woke up the next morning and they knew something happened. They didn't know that. Didn't have a clue who did it. And that's what happens, because guys don't care. They don't care. All they want to know is what can you do for them to make them feel better. The rest of it they can care less about. But that's the life that you'll have. If that sounds good, I don't know. I mean, is that what you guys are looking for? Or is it the curiosity? What is it about it that has your attention or has you curious? I mean, I was a kid too, right? We all get curious. Well, what is this? What is that? I mean, how many times do we ask mom and dad when they tell us to do something? Why? For what? But I mean, just out of curiosity, if you'd like to share it, what is it about it that has your attention? Anyone? No one?
I think they figured it was a dumb idea by this point, honestly.
What I don't want to see, I went through that and I know what that pain is. And what I don't want, if I can just help one person, if I can, I don't want anyone else to go through that. Because that is what ultimately, in one way or another, you're going to die. It's my phone.
Wait, you sure? Is that what that is?
Didn't say hello motel, but it's not
Not
fun.
this time.
Not this time.
Okay, so there's different kinds of drugs. They do lots of different things, different specifics, different ways they're made, different stuff in them. The one thing that is the same with all of them is they, I'm going to call it artificially change your mind.
Temporarily, because I mean, after
Yes.
so long, the high's gonna go away.
But they make you feel differently. They change how your mind is functioning through chemicals. Just like medicine can reduce your pain, or everybody knows if you breathe chlorine and ammonia at the same time, it'll like hurt like heck, and it'll destroy your lungs. It'll mess you up, and it gives you a lot of pain. Chemicals can do all kinds of stuff. We all know that.
I have a question. What's the difference between being high and intoxicated?
Same thing, you're impaired. See, like when you're
Okay.
drunk, you don't know, but everything in the body, okay, if we're gonna get down to how the anatomy, is it's a chemical balance. Like right now, we're chemically balanced in our brain, right? So when you introduce a drug or more of a drug
Or
into your
alcohol.
body, or alcohol, it releases dopamine, and now you're chemically unbalanced. And that's why people.
Quick answer to your question. Usually intoxicated is related to drinking alcohol, and being high is related to drugs, but they're both kind of the same thing. They're both basically that your mind is being changed chemically.
Yeah.
That.
And it's a chemical imbalance, and then sometimes a lot of people, when they do meth, we call them spun. They did so many drugs, their brain literally never goes back to normal. They're just out there.
Like they can't recover from
They
it.
can't recover. I mean, I've seen people look at light bulbs and say that in that light bulb is a chip implanted by the government so they can listen to what we're saying. And you can't tell them different. Is it funny sometimes? Yep.
There was a guy who somehow, he got spun, and in his mind, he was a 2x4. I'm serious. Like, he thought he would just stand there, he wouldn't say anything, with his arms just hanging there, because in his mind, he was a 2x4. He was just, like, his mind was just fried. Like, you couldn't change his mind, you couldn't persuade him of anything. You could talk to him, he'd hear you, but that's like what his brain had decided. He was a 2x4. That's like what he was. You couldn't persuade him, hey dude, you're fine. You can, go walk over there and do something. I mean, he'd still like go use the bathroom, like his body functions still work, but his brain was just gone.
Toast. It gets too hot. You don't even know what day it is, what planet you're on.
It's bad.
And that's what happens because like you don't know what drug you're getting, and when you do know what drug it is, you don't know what they used to put in it. So my
The stuff's
solution,
scary.
yeah,
It's really scary.
because you don't know. I mean,
Tell
You
them about like, okay, so
Mexican cheese.
queso, yes, Mexican cheese, not that. But okay, so the way I understand, I've never been part of it, but the people who are actually like hooked on drugs, they have to keep making it stronger to get the same feeling because their body builds up immunity to it.
They have to do more of it, yeah. Like,
And there's fentanyl, there's carfentanil, there's all kinds of,
fentanyl.
there's crack cocaine, there's all kinds of different drugs, different names for the drugs. But basically you have to keep getting a little stronger and a little stronger and a little stronger to
Yeah.
keep overcoming your body's immune system that like starts to cope with it and make it to where like you've built up a tolerance to that drug. Does that make sense?
And like you don't
Guys,
know,
does
like
that make sense?
you can get one from supplier A and it's halfway decent. You have to do X amount to get high. And then you have supplier B who has not as much cut, which is filler, and he's got super strong stuff. Well, if you do the same amount you got from A as you do with B, you're dead.
Right. This stuff's very scary because you don't know how much of what is in it. Basically, it's just you're taking it and hoping that everything will be okay. You want to get high, you're not in your right mind, so you want the stuff.
Basically. And you'll do anything to get it because I'm going to tell you what. You think
Jake did anything to get it. I saw Jake when he was skinny. he was the skinniest dude I've seen in a long time. And his arms were like sticks, and his face was like all drawn up. This guy right here.
I was right
And
now
that wasn't that long ago. That was
200
probably, what,
pounds.
2-3 years ago maybe?
Right now I'm at 200 pounds. Back then I was at 120 maybe. Because I didn't.
That's a
wanna
big
eat.
difference.
I didn't want to eat.
He didn't have to eat. He
The
had
more I-
drugs pushing it.
The more I ate, the more it took away from the effect of the drugs.
So he would eat less so that the drugs were more potent, you know, because per body weight, he then that way is more effective. Do you guys understand? Okay, do you guys have any questions? I just told Jake, I was like, I've worked with you, I've known you my whole life. Like, if there's anyone that can shed some light on this topic, it's not really me, because I've never been involved with it. I don't know the ins and outs. If there's any questions, anything you're curious about,
You know why
any,
that
I mean, I'm not against asking questions.
No.
I'm not this bad voodoo guy where I'm gonna, you know, get somebody in trouble because they're curious. It's not like that.
No. All
But this is a subject that I know gets a lot of people in trouble, and I would rather have someone that knows what he's talking about explain it to you, so you don't have to be curious and you don't have to be trying to find answers from random people, even if you're just joking, which, you know.
And we get curious. All this is not like I'm coming down and you're horrible for doing it, right? That's not it. It's just that
Everybody has curiosity.
what I've gone through, I don't want to see any one of you ever go through. Like, ever. I mean,
How many times did you try to like walk away from it before you actually got smacked in the face by the love of God and he actually like delivered you from it?
see, that's the thing, is you're not going to unless he delivers you. I can't count how many times. I tried so many times because I wanted to make my sisters happy. I wanted to make my mom and dad happy. I wasn't ready to walk away from it. And I couldn't because there's that strong pull. Always to it, in the spirit of familiarity. But I tried many times and you just can't. It's once, that's why
It
a lot of
sucks you
people,
in.
yeah, a lot of people end up dying from it.
I have another question. I don't want to do this, but how do people even find suppliers?
That's easy.
Well, you don't find them at church.
Not that I wanted, but where you
Not that I want, but which street is that you go down?
Which corner was that? What was his name again?
No, you just,
Jane and what exactly?
like, you can look at a person and tell, okay, obviously they're on something, so then you end up talking to them and you strike up conversation and,
Basically, make a connection with someone that you think might be high. Ask them, you know, hey, you got something you want, you know.
and
can I
you'll
get
go to
some of what
like
you
you'll go
got?
to parties and see people at parties.
A lot of it has to do with social networking too.
Yeah. But I just don't, I mean, and if anyone ever has a question, you can have your dad call me. Like, I'm more than happy to answer a question. And I can break it down for you and tell you how it works, what parts of the body it affects.
But the other part of it is actually really serious, even if like you're just
Because like a
basically
thought,
basically tickling your mind by researching this stuff.
because a
just-
thought typically leads to an action.
And I mean, school is just learning.
Yeah.
That's like all kids, if they're considered, you know, if their parents are decent, they try and give them some schooling so that they learn stuff. The same thing goes for drugs. You need schooling, so to speak, on drugs. That doesn't mean you go to the lab and you try it and you see what happens. It means you have someone who's an expert tell you about it.
Like, the best way I could explain it is, okay, you don't just go eat, right? You get hungry and then go get yourself some food, right? So
Or you
there's
tell
a
the woman
thought,
to make something.
and then there's an action after the thought, and it's kind of the same thing.
The other thing is you guys aren't often in a place where this stuff is prevalent, but as you get older you will be. Colleges, places where you guys are going to be in dual enrollment, you know, stuff like that, friends you might make.
And like, you'll end up homeless. I had homes, lost homes, paid for cash.
The main thing is I want you guys to learn, and this sounds super cliche, but you need to learn when something doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right, or you know is wrong, you know how to say no without any, oh well, I mean I'll just try it once, or I'll just mess with it
There
once.
ain't no once.
That goes for you and Lolo at the moment because Riley did the right thing. Riley told me something was wrong. Riley explained it. Well, actually, Riley didn't tell me. Gina did because she told Gina. But it's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
she felt bad in her heart and she wanted to come clean.
And I wouldn't be
And I feel
mad-
really bad that I have to discipline her either way because something bad was done. But she did the right thing. I'm totally on board with that. I feel like I should buy her a present
I wish
and spank her
someone-
at the same time.
I
you
wish
know?
someone would have told on me. Because
Right.
I'm telling you, the hell, and I'm just being honest, the hell you literally go through, it sucks. You think that, I mean, you're throwing up and using the bathroom on yourself at the same time. Every part of your body hurts. Your hair hurts. The wind from your hair, wind hitting your hair hurts. Light hurts. And because that's that chemical getting out of your body and your body fiending for it. And that's why a lot of people can't go through it. I can't tell you how many, it's called DTs or withdrawals.
Detox.
I can't tell you how many times I've been through it. I went through it so many times, I'll put it this way, that it did not affect me. I could go on about my day. I wouldn't sleep for 2, 3, 4 nights. But I could go on with my day, and that's sad. That sucks. You ain't eating nothing, you ain't drinking nothing. But I just don't want it, this isn't like, I'm not here to like,
This is
You're
your
horrible for
drug
doing-
education class for
yeah,
the
I
day.
just don't want, that's all it is drug it. I don't want no one to. I wish someone would have told me of all this. But they didn't.
And warned you basically, because you can still do anything you want.
Yeah, we all have
This
a
has been
choice.
pushed a little too far because I'm not saying that I don't care about any of this. What I'm saying is that I care about it, and that's why I would rather educate you guys and inform you on some of this stuff than just be like, oh, I have good kids. They know to not do this stuff, so I don't even have to talk to them about it. That's not really the case.
Basically, we've been friends our whole life, and he's seen what it did to me, and he doesn't ever want that to happen to me.
Exactly.
Because it's heartbreaking.
It's bad.
If that
And
happened to one
Jake's
of my
dad
kids,
and mom had a heck of a time because I remember Tracy would start jobs.
Yeah.
And Jake was working for Tracy. And Tracy would get a draw on the job, which is like money for the job. And then before he could spend the money on the stuff for the job that needed to be bought, somehow that money would go missing and nobody really knew like who had taken it or where it went. But it went to drugs. And it was Jake stealing it from his own dad.
Yeah.
From his own dad's company, from his own, and why? Well, because he wasn't thinking straight. All he wanted was, that feeling that came with the chemicals. Does that make sense?
So does anybody have any questions?
Besides,
I think some of you do, you just don't want to ask.
You
And
can
that's
ask.
cool, like, I understand.
there's nothing wrong with
There's
asking.
nothing wrong
This is
with
why
asking.
he's here.
Like, I had questions and I would never want to ask, and I was like, that so ain't me, and it definitely was at that time. I don't even know what you're talking about, but yeah, that was me. But if you have questions or want to ask, you're more than welcome to call me.
You understand, guys?
Mhm.
And then the other half of this is if you're just jokingly, basically almost pranking by mentioning drugs and doing stuff like that, looking at it, thinking about it, that's not a healthy way to spend your brain space. There's a lot of better things. If you're bored and you just need entertainment, okay, I understand that. I grew up in a neighborhood where everyone there was my friend. We went outside and we played frisbee, football, whatever, every day after school, for hours. I had no shortage of stuff to keep me entertained. It wasn't TV.
It's not like
It wasn't
you guys don't have
electronics.
plenty of brothers and sisters beat up on one another. So that's what we did.
Good.
I
I'm
tried,
joking.
but they don't fight back. That's the boring part.
Your
Yeah.
mom and dad's making sure you have plenty of friends.
Anyway, so things are different. Me and your generation is a little different now. The electronics and all the stuff that is entertainment
Yeah.
wasn't available for us, for one. For two, we were always outside doing physical stuff of any kind.
Tree forts,
Yeah.
chasing girls. That
Yeah,
was,
whatever.
I mean,
Whatever it was.
I was on the trail.
It was a lot less of a trail to nothing. It wasn't like the world was at your fingertips. Now, you have a phone, you have anything you want.
Things that
You learn how to use that phone, you can get around stuff, you can be sneaky, you can do whatever you want. It's all your personal choice. That doesn't mean that it's good or that it's bad, honestly. It just means that you have a lot more choices that you need to learn how to make correctly, that's all.
Can I go get Bob? He's craving for. He's fine. He's screaming for me.
He'll cry himself to sleep.
Yeah, you can get it now. I wanted you guys to pay attention, that's all.
I told him he had to.
Dad, can you call my phone?
Alright,
What do you want me to call it?
I'll see you guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jay.
Jay.
Absolutely.
I'll call it Levi's phone. Luke, let's go.
Guys, tell Jay thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, sir.
You could have stayed for dinner, but no.
Well, I have my kids at the house and I don't even know, I think we're gonna make pizzas. I don't know what's wrong with Little Caesars, but apparently we have to make them now.
You must be Italian.
A little bit.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, buddy.
Don't let that, Chevy get jealous of my Ford in the driveway.
I'm not gonna get jealous. It runs